A very good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are joining us from. And you are warmly welcome to the Power Impact Series, proudly brought to you by the African Season Speakers Network. Yeah, my name is Ambassador Benjamin Uswansa, and it's always a pleasure to have you here because it's a platform where we're going to share knowledge from all over the world. Hey, were you here last week? Last week was a wonderful episode. This year is going to be another wonderful one. Thank you for staying around with us through our month of November for our health month. This month, we're zooming into another area, and it's going to be a mixture of everything. And kicking start with it, it's going to be wonderful. Welcome to the platform again. Share the page, share the link, and let others also join so that they can also come and have what we're going to share here today. I promise you it's going to be fireworks. You're going to love it and love it over and over again because my guest in the studio, wait till I finish introducing our guest, and then you're going to enjoy what our guest has for us today. But before I do that, as usual, we'll go for our first commercial break, and right after our first commercial break, I do the introduction. Stick around, don't go anywhere.
Need a spark to kickstart your innovation? Looking for thought and talks to get things moving? Wondering how to navigate a future full of change and uncertainty? With the eye-opening stories of digital disruption, extreme customer centricity, organizational innovation, and global shift, our collective of speakers, MCs, and moderators will shift your perspective. Meet our speakers. For booking and interviews, contact us on 0246 054092 or send us a mail info.accessnet@gmail.com. You can also follow us on all social media channels at AccessNet Global, African Seasoned Speakers Network, influencing the next generation of Africans.
Influencing the next generation of Africans is exactly what we're doing. And we are here on the Power Impact Series. Right away. Let me quickly go and give you a background of our guest today. Right. Currently teaching at the American History at Hopkins Valley College and serves as the advisor for the Minority and the History Club. Our guest is the founder and director for the African Roots and Heritage, that's ARHF. Now, ARHF is a non-profit with a mission to share African culture through programs such as the African Roots and Heritage, June 19 African nations together to plan and participate building the bridge between the diaspora and the African community. Their motto is celebrating our heritage while confronting the challenges of being Black. Okay. Our guest specializes in culture and art, and her scholarly works include Catherine Duckham, an African American cultural icon, and various essays and articles. Our guest is also a travel photographer and has exhibited photographic essays entitled Eyes of the African Princess at Charles H. Wright's Museum of African American History and many other government sites, colleges, and universities. Our guest has been credited, with all four what I guess does well, and as a result of that, as an award-winning short film director and a producer. In the year 2010, our guest was elected at the Ohio representative or the 6th Regional Diaspora Caucus and later became the international representative to the African Union. Our guest has sat on third and fourth Pan-African Cultural Congress and the third Minister of Culture and the Youth, Culture and Sports. That's STCYCS2. In 2018, our guest was elected as an officer of the first African Union Pan-African Writers Conference. The most recent accolade awarded to our guest was in July 2021. I guess became the ambassador for the sixth region to the African Union, African Academy of Languages. In December 2021, our guest was nominated and accepted as a member of the African Languages Week Coordinating Committee representing the SIP region. Our guest is known as the Spirit of Africa because of the passionate works our guest is bringing through cultural awareness and participating in the ongoing African Renaissance while uplifting African people no matter where they dwell. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are ready to receive and welcome this wonderful guest we are talking about, and you want to listen to and hear more about, don't go anywhere. Before I just bring her on board, I just want you to just hear a word from our guest.
Good morning. This is Anita, and I just want to say happy day because you know what? Each day that we live, we are a blessing to the world, and the world is a blessing to us. So, therefore, give your blessing, receive your blessing of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the very first time on the Power Impact series, help me welcome Professor Anita Marine Diop.
Well,
How are
Ambassador
you?
Anita, I want to thank you for bringing me on your show and just giving me such a warm welcome. As you were reading and talking about my life, I was saying, "Is that me? Did I do that?" And the answer is, yes, I did.
You asked the question and you answered it yourself. Beautiful.
And
Wow,
thank you
wow,
for that
wow, wow.
surprise video. I didn't know that you were gonna play that. I woke up that day feeling good. You know how sometimes you just feel good. I just felt extra good that morning, and I said, "Let me share this with the world, because you never
Wow,
know
wow.
who's watching, whose life you may touch."
Right, right. You have the least idea whose life you're touching by doing that video. And yeah, we said, now we need to bring this video on board so that we will warm in to what we're going to do today because it's going to be a wonderful time with the professor herself.
Yes, yes.
So you are welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm blessed.
Right, right. I know you've done a lot of traveling, and then we just had to just pull you out of your final traveling, and we say let us bring Professor on board. So I know it's been a kind of roller coaster for you, but hey, here we are today that you are on
Yes,
the Power Impact Series, and we are happy to have you. We are so happy having you on board. Yes, so I read a little bit about you. I read a lot about you, but hey, you are here yourself. We want to hear from you yourself. Who
okay.
is Professor Anita Marie Diop?
Well, as you read in my bio, I am the spirit of Africa. And that is a title that actually I first heard it in a dream when I was 6 years old. And I won't go into the dream, but I heard it in a dream when I was 6 years old. And then in 2012, when I had the opportunity to serve on the third Pan African Cultural Congress, and all of the dignitaries, ambassadors, and experts that I met there, after I had given my presentation, someone said, "She is the spirit of Africa." So it was not just in my dream, but it was
Wow,
at that time that I began to embody and
wow,
take my message to the world very seriously. And as you said, I recently traveled. I was in Cameroon for a little over 2 months. as a partner to Sertatola, and we created the New African Thought Conference. And that conference um, is it created a lot of synergy on the ground, and we don't want to see it stop. But part of the New African Thought is language, and that's what we're going to talk about today: the
Yes.
power of speaking your native tongue. So I want to backtrack because I normally introduce, before I speak any words, I speak native.
Right.
So,
Right. Go
Mengadet,
ahead.
Selunkum,
Mhm,
Abushini,
mhm,
Mboite,
mhm.
Hodi. I greet you in the various tongues of the African nations.
That's right.
Hello and welcome.
Right.
It's important for me, being born in the diaspora, to make normal hearing the African languages, because these languages were, one, taken away from us, but two, it is our power as a people to rise.
Right. Right.
Uh, in last December, actually 1 year from today, I was commissioned as a member of the African Languages Coordinating Committee through ALCALAN, which is the African Academy of Languages, department of the African Union. And so I represent the sixth region. So it is
Right.
my duty to uplift, inspire, and empower the people by recognizing the power of the spoken language.
Oh,
We, when I say we, Africans in the diaspora, as well as those that were born on the continent, have suffered from our languages being removed from us. And in most countries, say Ghana, the official language is English, or Nigeria is English, but Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, um, Cameroon, the official language is French. And even in the colonized schools during colonialism, and even still till today, there is a stigma that's attached to your native language.
right.
And that stigma causes individuals to say, oh, I speak the Queen's English. I speak good English, or I speak good French.
Right.
But if
Right.
I speak my native language, I'm looked down upon as a person that's uneducated, as a person that has no prestige or ambition or any status in life.
Sure.
And
Sure.
all these are a great misnomer, okay? And
Right.
I'll tell you of an incident where I believe my ancestors had given me the key in the power of language.
That's right.
In conjunction with The Ohio State University, when I lived in the state of Ohio, I used to produce a Kwanzaa program. And it
Okay.
was laid upon my heart that during the program, whether you are a speaker, a musician, a poet, anyone that was on the program had to speak in their native language.
That's right.
And only I could speak English because only I knew English. And so I commanded everyone to speak their native language because I wanted the community in which we dwell to, when they hear Nanga Death, they know
Right.
that's Wolof. When
Okay.
they hear Mboite, they know that's from the Congo. When they hear Abushini, they know that's from the people in Mozambique.
Right.
Because so
Right.
easily we're trained. If I say bonjour, you know that's French. If I
That's
say
right.
hello, you know that's English. If I
That's right.
say ciao bella, you know
Hmm.
that's Italian.
That's
Okay?
right. That's right.
Or bon dia, you know, without being trained or taught, you
Get it.
know that's Portuguese. So
That's
I
right.
want every African born in the diaspora as well as on the continent to recognize their own language. And this is
That's
how what happened in our program that the ancestors confirmed for me the power of speaking our native tongue.
okay.
There was a lady from Mauritania, and her language was Pular, and only she and her musician knew Pular.
Okay.
So she was singing a song, and it had a little beat to it. But after a few moments into the song, everyone in the auditorium, which was about 300 people, jumped up on their feet and they began to clap their hands and they
Okay.
got in the aisle and they got happy and it kind of reminded you of a scene from church. And I'm amazed because I'm moving, I'm looking at the people, everybody's engaged, but
Yeah.
nobody knows what this lady is singing about. So
Okay.
after she finished her performance, I asked her, "What was your song about?"
Okay.
And she said, "Brotherhood and unity."
That's right.
And so, by the way of the Spirit, no matter which African language is your native language, when she was singing about brotherhood and unity, that message went through everyone to receive it. And that's
Wow.
the power of the native language. She brought everyone together to rejoice
Wow.
by the way of the Spirit. So that was powerful. So that was in, I think, 2009 or 10, that particular program was performed. And so from then on, I began to understand this thing
Hmm?
about language, that when the African speak its native language, we in the diaspora who have been torn away from the continent, we get to hear the voices of our ancestors.
Right.
Isn't that wonderful? We get to hear the voices of our ancestors, the ones that we would never meet. But
Okay.
if you continue to speak your native language, we continue to connect with
Okay.
our past. We continue to Sankofa. And I
Hmm.
believe that's an Akan word that means to go back and
Sankofa. Yeah.
pick up the gems of the past. And this
Right.
is how we in the diaspora get to pick up the gems of the past. So it's a twofold task.
Right.
One, those on the continent must speak their language.
Right.
And two, those that are away from the continent must learn the language, must
Okay.
recognize the language, and be blessed of the language. Importantly, language is a key to your identity. And I'm going to give you an example of how your language can propel you or push you back. All right. So a few years ago, the Nigerian film company produced a film by the name of Lionheart. Are you familiar with
I,
Lionheart? Okay. It was a pretty good film. And it
yeah.
was worthy of the greatest accolades that can be given, but they
Right.
were disqualified.
Hmm.
And the reason why that they were disqualified is because they were practicing the Queen's English in that
Ah.
film. Okay? And the
Yeah.
ancestors gave them a penalty.
Yeah.
They gave them a penalty and they were disqualified. But that penalty made them think.
okay.
So now there's a film called Annie. Anilako. I may be mispronouncing it, but it's a Nigerian film,
Okay.
and they're speaking Yoruba.
Okay.
So
Okay.
now this film has the propensity to rise and get those accolades that they were
Right.
seeking. And
Right.
it's because speaking Yoruba, that is their original tongue. And that is why they can rise now. But as long as you speak the colonizer's language, you're always going to be marginalized because you're being seen as inauthentic as
Okay.
well as simply not original.
Okay.
So when we call back to ourselves, we reclaim our language, we reclaim our identity, we also reclaim our power. And in reclaiming that, we position ourselves to be first in this world. You see, we're going through a paradigm shift. And the paradigm shift is saying that the powers that are in charge now will no longer be in charge. So our ancestors are calling us, those that will hear and listen to the voice of the ancestors, they're calling us back to ourselves to reclaim our identity, okay? And to empower ourselves, to propel ourselves into the African Renaissance. The African Renaissance is happening on all fronts. Every man, woman, and child of African descent is part of that Renaissance.
Right.
Africa once had a glory. We
Sure.
can't go back to that old glory, but we can prepare ourselves, man, woman, and child, to go on and create a new glory for
Yeah.
Africa.
That's it. That's it. We need that new glory for Africa. Wow.
Yes, and it's rooted in self love, self determination,
Right.
self identification.
That's it.
It's rooted in originality
Right.
and authenticity.
That's it. Wow. In originality and in authenticity. That is how our native languages are rooted in us. I love what he said. He said, when you hear the native languages, you're connecting with your ancestors whom or who you didn't get the opportunity to meet physically. But when you hear the language, it
Yes,
resonates in your spirit. That is tight. That is tight.
yes.
Well, before I go, let me just read a little bit comment that are coming in from our viewers. Okay, this is from Gerard Messina. Okay, Messina. He said what? Quite interesting. Languages or language as the most prominent variable of culture is very fundamental or foundational for identity construction and preservation. Exactly what you were saying. Exactly rooted in there. I have the boss charger who says, I'm
Absolutely.
watching you live from Dallas, Texas. Thank you, boss charger. I have also Steven Giggs. He says, hello from South Africa. Thank you for joining. And then Gerard comes in again. He says, watching you live from Yaoundé, Cameroon, Central Africa. Hey, yes, the spirit coming in.
My Jaeger.
Hey, so we speaking in our native language. So to all of you who are joining us on the Power Impact series, I want to say to you, Akwaba, which literally means you are welcome, because we want to
Yes,
resonate that with our ancestors right on the show today. Right. So Professor, all right. So which African country have you traced your roots to, or which African country are you from?
okay. Well, that's a good question. I have what they call the mitochondrial DNA or the
Right.
E gene. I
Right.
actually have all of Africa inside of me.
I love that.
But the greatest percentage is from Cameroon,
Right.
Angola, and the Congo. And
Okay.
fairly recently, I just actually last year, I was able to trace my most dominant personality traits to the Bassa people of
Okay.
Cameroon.
Cameroon. Right.
And
Right.
again, that was through my dreams. My ancestors led me to my people.
Okay, okay, okay. If you join us, yes, you're welcome to the Point Pass Series Show, where today we are having with us Professor Anita Marine Diop, and then we are discussing our topic for today is the power of preserving African languages at home and abroad. So we want to resonate that thing within us with our ancestors, and I love the way she put it. Yeah, she can simply be bottled as an African because she has every bit of an African in her. All right, so to the topic and then to our top, some questions that I want to find out from you. What happens to the African not speaking the native language because you find yourself in an environment where people are kind of looking down on your language, and again the people around you don't understand your language, and you are forced to speak the language that the people are speaking there. What happens then to your native language? How do you go about projecting that native language so you can resonate with your ancestors where you are?
Okay, that's a very good question. Uh, January the 24th through the 30th of each year is African Languages Week. That is hosted by the African Union. And one of the things we're doing with the six regions is going into every nook and cranny of Africa as well as the diaspora to promote your African language. So if you're in a small village or a big village, a big city or a small city, if you are a part of a church, a secret society, a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a family, a community, a neighborhood, your workplace, college, school, elementary, we're asking the community to come out and create a celebration celebrating your language in your village. It's not about competing with another language, the language that's predominantly in your village. We're asking to go into the elementary schools. And our motto for the African Languages Week or um, Alkaland is what we speak is what we eat. So
Oh,
they're
okay.
combining food security with language. So we're
Okay.
asking the community to perform cooking classes, to
Right.
teach the young people of a local dish with
Okay.
that local name, with the local ingredients that
Wow.
reinforces language and we can share a meal. So
Okay.
every year, um, 2023 will be our second year
Okay.
promoting African Languages Week. And again, that's from January 24th through the 30th.
Okay.
We have a website, AfricanLanguagesWeek.org, where individuals, organizations can actually go to the website and register their event. And that gives us an idea of how the communities are actually coming together and taking pride in their language. And that's what we want to do. Through colonialism and through slavery, our languages were beaten down.
Right.
And yes, it's easier to speak the colonizer's language because
Sure.
that's what has been thrust upon us. But if we bring ourselves back to the forefront, we would understand that our negotiating power is within our own language. And the average African speaks two or three native languages anyway.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
But
That's true.
the average, so they're the same way, well, in a different way, a way that instill pride, that the colonizers push down the language. We can elevate the language with our own power,
Right.
and we have to believe these things. We have to know these things. um, the African writers have taken a hit in the literary world because they say, well, are they truly African writers if their novels, essays, or exposés are in French, Portuguese, or English or Spanish? And are they truly African writers? So, what makes an African writer that writes only in a colonizer's language? So, in reclaiming our identity, we can create a whole body of works in our own native languages,
Sure.
and that's the power.
That's
That's the power that we have to believe in and project ourselves into. We don't have to be limited to one language like I am. I didn't have the
yeah.
benefit of growing up in Africa. I
Right.
came, my ancestors came through the slave trade. The only thing I do know is English, but I make it a point to know how to say hello, thank you, goodbye in one of the African languages. I've studied Kiswahili, and now because I've been told that I'm Basa, I'm learning Basa because
Right.
that's precious to me.
Right.
That's very, very precious to me.
That's right.
So, so we can do it. There are naysayers. There's always going to be naysayers, but
Exactly.
those people are the ones that's going to be left behind. And I truly believe that when the train is going down the tracks, everybody that wants to get on will get on that train. And those, when they look around and don't see anybody else, they'll be running at the train. Wait for me. That's
Will be
life.
fun.
That's people.
It'll be good. Well, lovely, lovely, lovely. So, in advocating for this, are we saying that we need to have our local languages being taught in our schools or being part of our curriculum so that this negotiation power you're talking about can become prominent? Is that something we advise that should be done?
Yes, in the African Union last year, 2021, Kiswahili became a working language in the AU. So now all
Okay.
documents and even interpretation is done in the five um, other languages, and now Kiswahili. They're still working to make it an official language. And it's a process, it's a step by step process. And the reason why Kiswahili kind of edged out over the other languages is because of East Africa,
Okay.
because it is one of the languages that is a cross border language that's spoken in Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and I
Oh,
believe the Congo.
okay.
So there's a large population of people that's already speaking Kiswahili on the continent. And then when you come into the US, um, Malena Karenga, back in 1963, created the first African American holiday, and he utilized Kiswahili, and that is the Kwanzaa holiday. So they utilized Kiswahili for that holiday, and you'll find in the colleges and universities, as well as um, secondary schools and elementary schools, Kiswahili is the number one language that's offered in the US. And I believe second to that is Yoruba.
Okay.
So, um, so you have the diaspora that's learning Kiswahili, as
Okay.
well as the eastern states that utilize Kiswahili as a cross-border language. So
Right.
what they're looking at is to actually find out within the other regions which language can serve as the cross-border language, uh, like say with Ghana and Burkina Faso and Togo, what languages are crossing those borders in large numbers? And that may be the language that will be utilized in that area.
Okay.
You
Okay.
see?
Okay.
So
Right.
it's a way to integrate the language that's the most prominent. So it
Right.
won't be such a burden to teach the language. But if you start in the elementary schools, children's minds are like sponges.
Ha ha. Very true.
And
Very.
children can learn all these languages and adapt very quickly, much quicker than a person like me, senior citizen. But with the youth, they're able to grasp these languages. And so by the time, just think if you take a 6-year old and give them to the age of 18, they can know 3 or 4 languages easily. So we can
Most
breed
definitely.
the next generation that's thoroughly taught in multiple languages.
Most
And
definitely.
that's
Most definitely.
only to our advantage.
Sure. Sure. So once we do that, that means we're going to kind of now lift it up to the international platform. Then we're going to have that power.
Well, yes, yes, but there's ways that it can be done. The question becomes, well, how do we get it into our school systems? And one of the advantages that I'm seeing about growing up in the U.S., because we are African Americans, we are other, we don't think about going through the government in the normal ways to do things. We
Okay.
take matters into our own hands.
All
And
right.
what I've been noticing is the difference with the protocols
Okay.
with African societies. Everyone thinks, okay, well, the elite won't let us, or this party won't let us, and everything
Right.
is controlled by them, and so you're defeated before you even get started. But because we know that we're defeated before we get started, we don't bother asking. We don't bother going through the protocols to get told no. We start on the ground and the grassroots and we build up the popularity that is needed to get the attention of the greater society. And by the time the greater society has our attention, we would have made inroads. So one of the things that I suggest, there's a gentleman that I met. Actually, he's from Cameroon. He
Okay.
has a software program called Relusalem, which is
Oh.
the resurrection of the mother tongues. And you
Oh.
can go to Google Play and download his app and
Right.
learn over 35 different languages,
Wow.
35 different African languages.
Oh wow.
So it's in your hands. How many times do we pick up our phones and play games?
Mm,
10 or
mm.
15 minutes a day. And the application is free. 10 or
Okay.
15 minutes a day, and you can become well versed in an African language. So these are matters that we can take into our own hands.
Okay.
Um, and we don't have to rely on the school system to change their curriculum. We don't have to
Right.
rely on a politician to get voted in that's going to fight our cause. We can circulate this on social media and begin to
Okay.
download these applications and begin to teach ourselves.
Right.
And that's one individual that I actually know. But if you go
Okay.
to Google Play, you'll find other applications out there specializing in languages, Yoruba for Nigeria, Hausa, Kosa in South Africa, and so forth and so on. So there's a plethora of software applications out there. If anybody truly wanted to be abreast of another language, it's there.
Understand. All right. Thank you so much. I think you've answered most of this question, but I want to bring it on board so we can see how we can dive deeper into the topic. Okay, so the boss charger says, how are we going to unite African through language? That's one. And then two, considering the fact that sub-Saharan alone houses over 200 dialects, how are we going to unite a whole Africa through language?
Okay. Um, I don't know if uniting is what we're attempting to do. What we want to accomplish with the language is to reinstill the pride of your nativity.
Okay.
And there's over 1,000 languages throughout the continent. And with the African Languages Week, just think about your village. How many languages are spoken in your village? How many languages are spoken in your neighborhood?
Yeah,
Usually it's one.
exactly.
The
Exactly.
next neighborhood may have another language. So I don't think the issue is unity. The issue is reclaiming the identity and the power of your native language and preserving it, because there are languages which have died out because the holders and keepers of that language, they refuse to speak it, and they refuse to teach it to their next generation. And if
Right.
the next generation has no connection to the language, they have no reason to speak it. They have
Okay.
no connection. They're going to give it up. They say, "Oh,
Sure.
I speak, the Queen's English, or I speak perfect French." But when it comes time to bury their mother or father back on their homeland, they don't know what to do in their native language. And there's going to be someone to remind them, "Oh, you have to do X, Y, and Z." And they're like, "Well, what is that? What?
That's
You
true.
don't know how to bury your mother? You don't know how to bury your father?"
Yeah.
So language has its place, and it's part of your identity. When you go to a solemn occasion to bury your mother or to bury your father, that is your identity. So think about how you're separating yourself by priding yourself in someone else's language that cannot speak to how to let your dead rest in peace. And I'm sorry for being so graphic, but I need for you to understand what you're giving up.
Right. 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 You need to understand what you're giving up. Yes, we're here with the professor today. Yay. Hey, let me tell you something else. You know that she's a traveling photographer as well, and she has a lot of articles and essays on that. And yes, and I love it because she's picked the pieces from all the countries that she's visited, and that makes her an authority in the African roots and the languages. And I love it how she's blending it all. You need to connect with your ancestors when you speak the native language. And I love the way she was able to talk about how the segmentation happens. So within your locality, there's definitely a dominant native language being spoken. You know that. And we can ride on that to let our native languages come to the forefront. And that alone gives us the negotiation power as a group of people. Right, don't go anywhere. Stick around. Let me take my second commercial break. And right after that, Professor is going to give us a last words. And most of the questions that you have, we're going to ask Professor for you. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back.
Need a spark to kickstart your innovation? Looking for thoughts and talks to get things moving? Wondering how to navigate a future full of change and uncertainty? With the eye-opening stories of digital disruption, extreme customer centricity, organizational innovation, and global shift, our collective of speakers, MCs, and moderators will shift your perspective. Meet our speakers. For booking and interviews, contact us on 0246 054092 or send us a mail info.afsesnet@gmail.com. You can also follow us on all social media channels at AfsesNet Global, African Seasoned Speakers Network, influencing the next generation of Africans.
Influencing the next generation of Africans, and perfectly linking and fitting with the topic we're treating today. Yeah, you need to influence the next generation of Africans. You need to teach them their native language, because that is what is going to carry the spirit of Africa with them. And helping us to do that today has been Professor Anita Diop, and it has been a wonderful time with her, letting us know about the importance of having your native language being your core language, because it connects. Right. So, Prof, how does it feel when you get into an unknown place? I mean, you're visiting a place for the first time and you get some people there speaking your native language. How's it feeling like?
I had an experience. First, let me say that I've traveled to 28 of the 55 countries in Africa. And I'm always in high level meetings, either with the African Union or the United Nations. And
Right.
because, I speak English, I always have to get the translation in English or translated from the other languages. I had an opportunity in 2020 to do a conference in Tanzania. And this was the first time in my history that my English was translated into Kiswahili. It felt good. It felt good to have my words translated to an African language. It was just distinct from any other time of my words being translated to the audience. But for it to be translated into Kiswahili, into an African language, it just took me up a notch. It just felt good. I just felt elevated because I guess it is usual to have my words translated into um, French, Portuguese, German, even, and Spanish. That's usual for me. But for my words to be translated into Kiswahili, I was elated. It's just a different feeling. It was just absolutely a different feeling. And so I'm not intimidated by not knowing the language. And actually, I wish I could bring my driver on from Cameroon. He was a French speaker, and my French is very small, and his English was even smaller. I wanted to go here, there, and everywhere, but we worked it out.
Right.
We worked it out. Communication. I mean, you learn how to use your hands, and you learn, you know how to point the thing and make it happen. And that's the some people they might find it frustrating, but I guess I'm suited for it, and I
Right.
have the patience
Right.
to allow the communication process to go forth, no matter what language it is.
It is always a welcoming thing when you hear native language being spoken at a place that you least expected it to come out. It kind of resonates a lot of stuff, and then you feel at home. That's true. You feel like you bump into a conference or you get into a locality, and then everybody is speaking the Queen's language actually, and then you just hear a native language being spoken somewhere else, and like I'm at home now. I'm at home now.
Yes,
So
and
you
it
say it's
sounds good. I mean, there's some languages are beautiful to the ears,
oh
and you
yes.
don't know what they're saying, but it's like, yes, that sounds good to me. Whatever you like.
But it's good, yeah. It's good, yeah, it's good. So all we were trying to say is that it's very crucial for the native language to be taught at home.
Yes, absolutely. Because there were studies done here in the U.S. For African immigrants that if they come over, get married, or bring their spouse over, and they have children on a foreign soil, most likely they will not teach that child the native language. They're going to learn the language of the country in which they're growing up. And this
Right.
is how these children are becoming disconnected from the language. See, we were disconnected because of slavery, but
Right.
people are disconnected from the language because they're being lazy,
Right.
and
Right.
they want that child to speak, the Queen's English or that perfect American English or that French or whatever country they find themselves in, either be it Argentina, Spanish, or whatever language. They want them to speak the language of the land, and they forget that they have roots, and it's going to come a time
Right.
that those children need to reconnect with those roots. And um, then there's situations where you may have a parent, like with me and my husband. He's French speaking. I'm English speaking. And if
Right.
we had children, most likely they'll be English speaking because that's all I know.
Yes. Yeah.
And yet he's Wolof
Okay.
and French speaking.
French speaking. Yeah.
So in different combinations, it may be difficult to push one language over the other.
Right.
But
Right.
we have to put forth that effort.
Right. Right. Okay. I once saw, and I don't know how true it is, but because you are into this, I once saw that linguistics ability of the native language has a close relation to the development of the cognitive abilities and learning abilities of children. Is that true?
Yes, yes, that's very true. That's very true.
Right, 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 right. So it means then we have that. We don't have any excuse of teaching the children our native language because yes, it's going to help in their cognitive and then their learning ability. So yeah, we need to do this.
Yes, absolutely. Even I had an opportunity to go to a particular kingdom. I won't name the kingdom. While I was in Cameroon, and when you enter the kingdom, they have this huge gate, very beautiful. And one side that said "Bienvenue," and the other side it said "Welcome." And you pass through the gate to go to the kingdom. And I had a curious feeling. It just didn't feel right. It didn't look right. And so when I saw "Bienvenue" and "Welcome," and you had to pass through the gate, it translated to "Welcome to colonization," not "Welcome to the kingdom." So I suggested to another kingdom that had a very similar gate but did not have any signage that they put "welcome" in their native language.
Okay.
And that would be a learning point. So whoever comes to their kingdom, they would say, well, what do those words mean? And they
Oh,
can pronounce it and say it and tell them, welcome in the language of that kingdom,
that's right.
not the
That's,
language of the colonizer.
yeah. That hits directly to the soul when you're reading it in your native language.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And it would
Hey,
be more welcome, welcome to this part of Africa, not welcome to this colonized part of Africa. It's a different
sure.
meaning. And it was just
Yes.
something I picked up. And I would hope that when they do get signage, that it would be in their native language.
Yes, but some also say that they're doing that for the international market. We're having people coming in and they are all used to the Queen's language, so we want to do it so that we can also leverage on that and get foreigners comfortable in our places. How do you go with that?
Yes, comfortable in your place. Comfortable in your place. What does
Yeah.
comfortable in your place mean? That
Okay.
means that they can get immersed in the culture of your language.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. I get. Yeah. It makes you making it clear. It's clear
Yes,
now.
yes. I have gone to Italian restaurants in the US, and all of the menus are in Italian. They don't care anything about English. If you want to order a dish, you're going to order it by the name in which it originated. They don't care about English. They are in America, but they have Italian menus. So we have to have that same idea, and
Right.
that's how you learn Italian. That's how you become familiar with their culture, is by
Mhm.
indulging it, them not
Right.
making any excuses or cutting and saying, I want to make you comfortable. They're saying, I want to teach you who I am.
Right.
And
My
if you're
culture.
always using the colonizer's language, you're always saying, I'm colonized. So let's use our native language. Let's make it normal that when you
Right.
go to a kingdom, you will learn the language of the kingdom.
That's right. That's
You will
right.
learn the menu of the kingdom.
Kingdom. That's it.
You will learn like what they call gumbo or what they call okra. Here we
Okay.
call it okra. In some
Okay.
places in Africa they call it gumbo. In
Gumbo.
Louisiana they call it gumbo.
Okay.
We know what the vegetable is. We know how it tastes.
Mm. Yes.
So we call it by its name.
Right.
We call it by its native name. So we
That's it.
know what it is that these people specifically eat gumbo.
Right.
These people specifically eat pounded yam. But what is
Yeah.
pounded yam in
In the
Ghana?
native language. Yeah.
You know,
By
or what
by
kenke,
by
ga kenke, fante
yeah.
kenke, okay?
That's
And it's pounded
okay.
yam, right?
Yeah.
So we
Right.
call it
Right.
kenke because that's the people
That's
in
the
that
name.
area use that verbiage to describe that particular food.
That's right. That's it.
Hmm.
I think when you said you've been to 28 out of 53 countries in Africa. Okay, Sally from Burkina Faso said, have you been to Burkina Faso?
Yes, I went to Burkina Faso July of 2021.
Okay, Sally, yeah, Professor has been to your country. She has been to Burkina Faso because she wanted to find out if you've been to her country. Yeah, so Sally,
Okay,
yes.
wow, I wish I had my notes before me, but I think I learned Mosi, the Mosi language, or the Mosi people
Okay.
of Burkina Faso.
Okay, Sally, you need to come out again. Professor wants to just confirm something from Burkina Faso, the Mosi language or Mosi people. So come on, let's get it right and move on. Okay, so we want to just take our final words from Professor Anita. It has been a wonderful evening, man. If you're just joining us, don't worry. Just go back, start the whole show, and then pick all the points you need to pick because when you speak your native language, you resonate with your ancestors. You hear your ancestors speaking to you. You didn't meet them physically, but yeah, when you hear the language, oh my God, you are hearing your ancestors speaking with you. So, what are your last words for us, Professor Anita Diop?
My last words are to remember January 24th through the 30th. If you could organize something in your home, in your school, community, at work, to just celebrate your native language, identify a local dish, and sharing it with other people. You can go to our website, that's African Languages Week .org, and register your event. And remember that when you speak your native language, we in the diaspora get to hear the voices of our ancestors.
Right.
Kwaheri Ya Kukaona.
That's right.
Goodbye until we meet again.
Ah, ah, ah. Hey, we just heard from our ancestors speaking directly to our soul. It entices our soul. It has been one of, and yes, you know how we do it always. Yeah. Okay. Let me just take one from Sally before I come in with our powerful word. Okay, Sally, back from Burkina Faso says, growing up, I was ashamed to speak my own native language because I affiliated it with poverty. Today, I feel I lost because I practically have nothing to represent my country since I relocated to the United States. Ah, Sally. That's
Yes,
Sally.
yes. That's a typical case, a typical case. But the good thing is, most likely, your language is on some app in Google Play, and you can download it and begin to teach yourself and reconnect. That's the good thing. Technology is on our side.
Ah, the say technology is definitely on our side. So yes, that we came up with a hashtag for today, and that we're going to use the what you're using for the UN, and then what you use for the UN African Language Week and stuff. We say what we speak is what we eat.
That's right.
So our hashtag for today is what we speak is what we eat. We need to inculcate that into the next generation so that they can
Yes.
carry it out when we no longer there. So that when they speak, we know we are speaking with them still alive. And it has been a wonderful. We want to say thank you to Professor. And we know this is not the last time we're having Professor on the Power Impact Series show. She's going to come again. Definitely, we're going to do a part two of this. Yeah.
Yes.
Because, yeah, we just did the surface of today's program. We're definitely going to come back with Professor again. And then, as we always do it, by kind courtesy of Cyber Bills, we do a cybersecurity awareness on the show so that we get abreast and come to know with what the bad guys are doing. So, what we're talking about today is credential stuffing attack. So, credential stuffing attack is a kind of attack, a cyber attack, which the bad guys are using, or it's a method that they use to gather a list of compromised credentials of users. You know, research have shown that 6 out of 10 people will reuse their password for their online accounts. And so once we know the number of people that do that, when their credentials are compromised, these bad guys are able to create a list of all the compromised credentials and they try it on your other accounts because you are notoriously going to forget these dozens of passwords of your online account. So the easy way out is that you're going to reuse your password. So you have one unique password that you're using all over your online accounts. Now, this is where the vulnerability steps inside. That is where you become vulnerable. The moment there is a breach of data on a system that you have subscribed to or a system that you are on, bad guys are able to make a list of all these compromised credentials and they tried on your other account. And the point is, they definitely, the probability that they will get into an online account that belongs to you is high because that's what you use it. The best way to avoid this, or the best way, or one of the best ways to avoid this, is to get yourself a password manager, which is going to keep a list of all your passwords. And then you don't have that chance, or you don't become vulnerable of reusing the same password for your multiple different accounts online. Thank you so much for joining us. And it has been a wonderful day. It has been a wonderful time having today on the Power Impact Series show Professor Anita Marie Diop dealing with this wonderful topic that we had today. Make sure you learn your native language and make sure you teach your native language for the young ones that are coming to carry spirit of Africa where we find ourselves. As I always say, dreams are in levels. Make sure you get to the top level of your dream. Till we meet same time next week. It has been Ambassador Benjamin Oswansa on the Power Impact Series show. Next time with that same time next week for our next guest, who is also going to take us to another level.